This is it. This is the AxiDraw V3. And this is what we're going to be looking at today. And this is a drawing machine, believe it or not. In this video, I'm going to try and make a case for drawing machines and why you might want to consider getting one. This costs $475 for this version. This is the US paper sized version. I think it's the smallest version that they do, but there's a few larger models that I think print up to A3. It's made from nice aluminium. It's made from a few different components, but assembled in Sunnyvale, California. And you might be wondering what it can do exactly. I've said it was a drawing machine, but how does it work and what does it do? This thing can follow any vector path that you give it. So any vector file, any Adobe Illustrator file, any SVG file, anything like that. The nice thing is you can use any pen. You just drop the pen in here, and also you can print on any material too, as long as you can sort of lay the material down next to this device. So you're no longer just limited to the types of paper and the types of material that you can put into, you know, a traditional printer. This really does print on anything, as I'll show you later in the video. It arrives fully assembled. You don't really need to do anything out of the box. It also comes with a nice wooden easel, which is basically just a piece of wood with little legs on it, and then clips to hold the material in place. Let's hook this thing up and I'll show you what it can do. All right, let's start out with something simple. Let's see what we can do here. Then this is the micro USB. Oh, sorry. Yeah, it is micro USB, isn't it? The ink that this printer uses, or this machine uses, is just pens. So as long as you have a pen that has ink in it, you should be able to draw anything. So I'm going to use a red pen for this. Just make sure it works. Yeah, it seems to work okay. So put that there, line it up with, this is where the, this is sort of the head of the drawing machine. As long as you line stuff up with the top corner, it knows kind of roughly where it, well, not roughly, it knows exactly where it is relative to the paper, so it can draw all of the lines. Obviously you have to do that. But you just screw in this little holder, and that's it. Okay. If I had to use one word to describe this printing situation that's going on right now, it would be satisfying. It is so satisfying sitting here watching this and listening to this too. Just listen to it. Just listen to it for a second. Sounds like a little robot, which is because it is a little robot. I'd recommend just Googling around. There's loads of different resources that you can use to find vector files. There's one in particular that's pretty handy called plotterfiles.com. It has for download pretty, I wouldn't say massive resource, but I would say high quality resource of vector files that you can easily just download and have your machine plot. A lot of satisfying ones too, like this. The other thing that I'd recommend learning how to do, because it's very easy to do and it's also quite therapeutic, is just tracing, learning how to trace in Illustrator, or if you have an iPad, there's a few iPad apps that do the same kinds of things. But it takes almost no skill just to trace an image, and then once you've traced it, you can print it over and over and over again using this machine. So to show you how easy it is to trace something, I'm going to actually just trace something. I have this book here, which is filled with art by this guy called Robert McCall, and he does all these sort of futuristic, spacey kind of scenes. And there's a couple I've bookmarked here, so I'm going to do this one, and then there's also this one over here. This guy. Alright, so I'll pull that into think it's called Vectornator, the iPad app. And then trace it, and then we can get the drawing machine to spit it out. So the thing I always find interesting, the thing that makes it fun for me to watch back, is it mirrors the order in which you do things. So I'm going to do this star, now I'm going to do this star for some reason. That doesn't make sense. So I do that star, and bounce over to that star, which is a bit weird. And then maybe jump over to finishing off this star, which I didn't realise was unfinished. Maybe we'll do half a star, half that star, then half this star. And I decided to keep the USA here at the top, so that we'll just keep that, we'll just say USA. But I hid my name in there. So there's a very small little J-O-N on his arm. So indicating that this is me, I think. So this guy's going to personify me. The other thing that I thought might be kind of interesting is I left the rocket fuel completely, so can have some fun with that in addition to printing this out with the drawing machine. Can maybe use paint or some other effect or something to do some cool rockets. But I'm probably taking that a bit too far. Otherwise, it's just a pretty cool looking space dude. First of all, I'm just going to hide that layer there. The trace layer. So it's just this thing. That face looks really funny. Okay, cool. I dig it. In fact, I should probably finish off that shoe. That's going to really annoy me if I don't finish off the shoe. There's nothing really there to finish off though. Okay, I'm going to actually have to... oh shit. I'm going to actually have to improvise a little bit. This is what's called creating art. Oh. Well, whatever. That's fine. It doesn't need to go all the way, does it? Okay, so something to note is it's going to do that last. It's going to do that little detail on its foot right at the end. This is the envelope that this is sized to, ignoring this part. Extensions, AxiDraw, go. There we go, it went back and fixed that as the last thing it did, because that's the last thing I did. Makes sense. Okay, so now I'm just going to flip it over and print the spaceship on the other side, and then we can look at it up close. But I think it's looking pretty cool. Okay, go. Fucking hell. Luckily I didn't mess anything up. Oh, here we go. That might be one in a weird spot. Yeah, this is one in a weird spot. In a minute, I start to do half of one. Yeah, that gives me the idea. That one was half one I accidentally didn't finish. And now I start just doing half ones. And then finishing them off. And then I think I just start to get bored and I just get back to normal. I think this is pretty sick. This is a pretty sick envelope to receive in the mail. It's possible to make people think that you used a pen and you did it explicitly for them. Which, there's definitely value in that. You know, there's definitely value in being able to get somebody's attention and then retain their attention for, you know, a couple of minutes. There's a lot of value in that. Started to have quite a lot of fun with these custom envelopes. For every letter I would write, I would include a custom envelope with it that, you know, sometimes would include the person's face or sort of hint at the subject of the letter. And I also really enjoyed this spaceman sizing and positioning. Yeah, so the cool thing is, if you haven't figured it out yet, remember this is on an envelope. And what do you do with envelopes? You send them through the post. Post things, what do you need? Stamps. And stamps in America have little flags on them. So it looks like the spaceman is holding the flag. Just have a few canvases lying around. I don't have a huge selection of colours for these paint pens. This is the palette that I'm working with, which, considering the subject matter, isn't exactly, you know, not very many of these really apply that well. I guess blue is probably the closest. So let's do it in blue. So it doesn't really matter what pen you use. You just put it in this thing, as long as it's just like a tiny bit above whatever you're drawing on, it's all good. There we go. There it is. Oh shit. Oh good, I'm glad I took the pen out. That's the original. That's the trace. Forgot one thing. I'm going to do something interesting for this next print. I'm going to print just the same small shape over and over and over again. However, the sort of unique thing here is I'm going to use a pencil. The pencil's going to start out extremely sharp, and then over time, as the robot drawing machine kind of continues to draw with the pencil, it's going to get worn down. Thinking is it might create an interesting effect, seeing something, the pattern start very, very thin up here, and then as it sort of goes and kind of creates the same pattern over and over again, by the time it gets down here, it should be kind of very thick, a very worn down pencil. So let's try that. So I'm just finding a pencil now. Any pencil will do. Okay, it should start out pretty sharp. So I'm just going to put the pencil in there and then lift it just above the paper. Screw that in. If we do extensions, AxiDraw, apply. So I don't know if this is going to work, but in theory, these first ones should be like really sharp. And then as the pattern progresses, it should get much less sharp. We'll check in a bit and see how it looks. Cool. That took a while. You could probably do something interesting with that. I wouldn't say this turned out to be super interesting, but you can definitely see the effect I was sort of imagining. So right here is where we started, and you can see there's points on that shell that are very, very thin indeed. And then quite quickly, there's quite a nice gradient of Well, first it gets kind of thicker, comes back to the side, then it starts to kind of mess up, and then I realized, and then try, at least attempted to fix it. If you compare these two, this is the first shell and the last shell. Quite interesting seeing the contrast there. All right, let's do something else. The drawing machine itself doesn't actually know anything that's going on. It's not really aware of where it is. It's not really aware of what's underneath it. You could move this around and the drawing machine itself would have no idea. So you can actually do some interesting things. As a quick example, this is something that I think is just quite a cool effect that I've been messing around with, is if you do a print and then swap the pen out and then slightly offset the easel. So do a print here, swap the pen to a different color or something, and then, scooch the easel like, eek. It then creates this sort of, depending on the colors you use, almost like a 3D glasses effect on whatever it is you're actually outputting onto the paper. Let's do purple and red. There's a real art to moving the easel. Too much, it looks stupid. Too not enough, it also looks stupid. Whoops, press the Siri button on the laptop by mistake. I think it's probably gonna look like I didn't move it barely at all. And that's honestly probably true, but here I go. This is what it looks like. And maybe this isn't the best example, it's just some leaves, not that interesting really. But you can kind of see, you can build up a few different layers of this, perhaps, if you wanted to. All right, what's next? One thing that you can do that's pretty nice is there's a setting in the software that lets you tell the machine to stop after every layer in the vector file that you give it. So the thing that's nice about that is it makes it really easy to swap out a different pen. So you can do things like this. This is a London tube map where each of the different tube lines is on a different layer in the vector file. And then every time it would do one of the lines, the machine would stop. I would then swap the pen out for a different color. One of the things I thought would be worth at least attempting with this thing was to try and trick people into thinking I've actually written them a handwritten letter with a pen myself. I think there's something kind of interesting about being able to write something out once in just like a text editor or something like that, and then essentially printing it, but printing it in a way where whoever receives it thinks that you've literally sat there for 2 hours or whatever it is and actually kind of carefully written a note for them. That is interesting. And I don't think I've really cracked it, but I got kind of close, and I thought I'd show you my workflow at least for creating a custom font with your handwriting, because it was surprisingly easy, so I thought I'd include it in the video. First of all, go to this website, and I'll put the link in the description. It's called calligrapher.com. I think it's probably spelled wrong, but like I said, I'll put the link in the description. And then all you have to do is you just draw in the cell, whatever the corresponding thing is. Z, alright, I've done it. And now I think all you do is you just export it. There you go, and now they're all here. I'll send this to my computer and then, type something out, and then I have no idea what I'm going to write, by the way. Hello. Decided. It looks like a 5-year-old wrote it, which, I guess it's kind of accurate. I do sort of have the writing of a 5-year-old. I would say limited success. It would be a lot more convincing if, well, two things really. One is the issue with the way I converted the font to a vector path, so that's one issue, which, you know, that's easily solved. But the second issue is, you know, having these identical letters here, like for the D and the D, that's identical to that. But it looks like that's actually also fixable using that software. I think you can just upload multiple versions of every letter and then have it randomly select for each one, which would be really, really cool. So if you do both those things, I actually think you get that pretty convincing and get it to a point where you actually are fooling some people. $475, I'm guessing not everyone is going to want to buy one of these things just because it's you probably aren't going to get $475 worth of value out of it. But if you like to mess around with things and tinker with things and maybe like send people letters or just kind of create stuff in general, it's really cool, and I've had a great time messing around with it, and there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with it, as I feel like I really am just kind of just scratching the surface with it so far. If you enjoyed this video, I'd recommend hitting the subscribe button. We make new videos every week about interesting, strange, eclectic, weird, cool things to the internet. So I'd recommend hitting subscribe if you like those sorts of things. But otherwise, see you next video. This video was brought to you by deadeyeclub.com, makers of the Wishbone EDC slingshot. Head over there now and consider picking up their $100 Mischief kit, which includes everything you need to start shooting a slingshot. The Wishbone itself, 3 replacement band sets, and some ammo. It's the most fun you can have for $100 and you'll be supporting the channel.